Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of A Business Space with me, Stephen, from A Content Space. Today I'm joined by probably one of my oldest friends, which is crazy to say. We spend many years apart and then come back together every now and again and catch up, and it's like things haven't changed since I was 18, 20. So I'm going to introduce Matt, and then I'm going to let Matt talk about a little bit about his background and the things that he does and who he works with and who he helps. But please welcome Matt Bannon to the A Business Space podcast. Matt, cheers for coming in, mate. Appreciate it. Give us, for people who don't know, because you said something the other day which is super interesting to me about, and we'll come on to it in a minute, around you getting the IT director's role at one of the companies that you work for, really, really young. And
yeah,
the age that I was, I think I'm four years younger than you, maybe.
Possibly a bit more, Steve. I'm 47 in June, so
at the time when you got that role or working through it, I was really young.
Yeah.
I was sort of 18, 19, and we knew each other then. Yeah. But I never knew that until much later on in life that you got that role. So tell us a little bit about you, your background, and your skill set, really. That'd be really interesting to find out.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome.
Appreciate
it.
No so obviously my background is just kind of arrived in life, desperately wanted to do some things that were different. Came from a family where there was always a business interest. My dad was very entrepreneurial, ran his own businesses, actually successfully built and sold 3 businesses himself. Wow. So there was always an element of always wanting to do the best for myself and my family in the future. And I think one of the things you've just touched on there is I didn't really ever share what I was doing necessarily, because those things were important to me, but they didn't define me and who I was. And you're probably one of the only people I know who knows what this means. Yeah. Because, we met at a time when you were much younger, and, it was a time where I was in a career development path, but was still finding out who I was, really. So my background was I started with a company called All Sports when I was 16. Working alongside a friend in a shop in Warrington, selling trainers on a Saturday, just working Saturdays and Sundays for a pittance. I think I remember the salary was £1.18 an hour.
Crazy.
And then there was a commission element, and I was fueled by the commission element. You find your sales, you deliver those sales, and you could double or triple your salary for that particular day. So it was a really competitive retail sales environment. Yeah. Which was frontline, in front of the customers. You're out there, there's no hiding, you don't have an email account, these people are in front of you, you're having to deal with their challenges, their objections to price, their objections to products, and it was a brilliant way to learn about what business and life was. Yeah. You were at the forefront. Retail's often a great gateway. So fast forward from working in the shop, I did my A-levels, went to university, did politics and business, a BA Hons, and then did a law conversion, a postgraduate diploma in law. Wanted to work in law until I realised I didn't. And at that moment, actually, All Sports had always been willing to have me back during university and college to work the summers, and often they deployed me in the role of like a mobile store manager. So that kind of direction of travel led me to always returning back to them every summer. Yeah. At the end of the law experiment, I realised it wasn't for me, and I was offered a role back with them. Initially, just working on the help desk, doing some system engineering, out in my car, driving all around the country doing. It was largely till support and payment support. And that gave me a great grounding as well, because when you arrive at that premise to do some work, there is someone who's got a problem who desperately needs your help. And then fast forward from that, really, I was just always putting my hand up. So everything new that came up, I volunteered for that role. Yeah. So from 16, working as a shop assistant, selling trainers, I firstly ended up running all of their warehousing systems, which were quite innovative at the time. I then moved into being the IT manager. And by 25, I was the director of IT. And that business at that point was 200 million rev. Yeah. And it had 300 stores all over the UK. Thousands and thousands of colleagues that needed support. And that was really, it was a single owner business. Yeah. And like all single owner businesses, if you're good enough, you're old enough. Yeah. I didn't miss an opportunity. I was always the first to throw my hand up and say I could do something, even if I couldn't. Yeah. The reality was I believed that I could. Yeah, so I would learn it, and I had the right attitude, the right work ethic. I wanted to get on, and all of those things, like the cultural and your values, are the things that kind of put you in the right places. There's some luck involved.
Of course.
You're fortunate to be around something when a vacancy is made available, but I never ever kept my hand down. Like whatever come up, I just went for it. So, and that business then transitioned into JD Sports. Yeah. So at 25, I was the director of IT of a multinational high street retailer with 300 stores and £200 million of revenue. And that was scary, but what an introduction to your working life.
Yeah, I had a similar pathway in as much that I was in the marketing department at Betfred, and Betfred obviously at the time were, I think, if not one of the biggest per square foot landowners in terms of the UK in terms of retail. They had, I think at the time, the numbers will be slightly wrong, but close to 2,000 outlets across the UK. It was huge, and the marketing department was really small. It was all 20-somethings out of university, and they were responsible for print, digital, storefront, POS, everything. Every single part.
Wear a different hat every day.
Oh, it's mental. And, literally 3 or 4 graphic designers and a marketing team of 6 were responsible for that entire business. And it was turning over probably billions at that point, or hundreds of millions at least. And I look back on it now. At the time, it was a really hard job, and I had a bit of an acrimonious exit from there. But at the time, it felt difficult and a really challenging place. But in hindsight, looking back, it's like, what a great exposure to the working world.
A bedding ground for all the skills you'll need moving forward. I mean, that retail space in particular makes you confront who you are really quickly. And I think it's a brilliant grounding for anyone who wants to go on and be involved in business, run business, learn lessons quickly and fast. The things you do in retail could take you 10 or 15 years to learn somewhere else. Yeah. But actually you're confronted with them on day 10 of your tenure.
100%. And because of the high footfall through businesses like that, the situations just keep coming.
Correct. The opportunities arise all the time.
Yeah, it's crazy. Going back to a couple of things that you mentioned, why do you think you kept putting your hand up? Where did that motivation to just be help the business come from? Because it's not a usual thing. And I'll come on to a second part of my question after you answer that one.
Okay. I think for me, it was just the desire to continue to develop. Yeah. I wasn't necessarily in a crazy rush. Yeah. It wasn't generated by a desire to be somewhere by the time I was 25 or 30. But the way I saw it was, the more things you got involved in, the more things you learn. And the more things you learn, the better you would be. Yeah. So an inner self-confidence is a key part of it. We're all way up risk every day. You put your hand up for something, it becomes your responsibility quite quickly. Yeah. And you either live or die by that. At the time, I had a really great mentor at All Sports in the IT department, who was a really seasoned old pro, very calm, really methodical, and he was supportive in my growth, but he also used to present a caveat with that. He used to say, well, listen, I hear you, Matt, you talk the talk, but each day you're going to have to walk the walk. And that kind of fueled me on to always what I do better in everything that I did. I made loads of mistakes, hundreds of mistakes, but for every 5 you get wrong, if you get 10 right, you're on the journey. And I think if you're authentic with that too, that makes a massive difference. If you're willing to identify the things you're not very good at, and you're able to put your hand up and say, I need to learn, I'm not there yet with this, then that's really good holding the mirror to yourself and being introspective about the things you need to focus on. And that really worked well for me.
Where do you think that desire came from then, though, at early 20s? Because that's not an atypical trait of a early 20-year-old or even a teenager, to have a desire to really work on the self-development and career, especially at that age. Because, I had some ambition and I tried to move up in Betfred, and then I moved to different businesses, and through hard work I got there, but it wasn't necessarily the thing that I desired. Where did that desire come from for you, do you think?
I think for me, the fun cycle, as I call it, the one when you're in your late teens, early 20s. Your life is about finding out who you are. I had lots of home responsibilities at that point. My mum and dad were estranged. I had responsibilities to my mum and my sister. And I feel like I kind of delayed that fun cycle until I'd made sure everyone was okay. So I was almost fueled by the need to get my life in order, get everybody sorted, and then I could go and revisit the things that other people were doing in their 20s. When I met you, I was probably in my late 20s, early 30s, at which point I'd established myself. I had a good role, a good job, a good grasp on what I needed. And I felt like everybody else in my family were okay now, and I could kind of kick back for a while. So I almost had that delayed fun cycle. So I was almost forced to grow up, I think is probably the best way of putting it. And really open and honest as well.
Yeah, 100%. And then just to link back to what you said before, around the desire to kind of excel and the inane responsibility of being able to say, well, I don't know this, but I'm willing to learn. How do you think that differs from kind of the modern workforce and the modern generation? Because I think that skill set is really lacking in the types of people who may be applying for roles in my businesses and maybe applying for them in yours. Why do you think that difference is so apparent these days?
So I think we have entered a generation, a generational group of people who almost feel a sense of entitlement about receiving responsibility and financial remuneration early in their careers. I suppose when I was entering the market, what I realised quickly was I needed to learn from my seniors, my elders. I needed to understand how the office environment worked. I needed to understand how the business environment worked. I wasn't looking for any shortcuts. I was willing to get in my car and drive around the country and confront issues in stores as an engineer, just like I was happy to stand in front of the other roles and help guide and aid other people. I do think it has changed, but it's not completely changed. There are still people out there who desperately want those opportunities to learn and grow for others. The hybrid working environment of today probably doesn't lend itself to that experience transfer quite in the way it did when we were finding our way. And I don't actually think those people only know what they know. They don't know any different. So they're not acting out of a sense of entitlement. They just don't know what going to work every day in an office and learning from seniors feels like, because they haven't lived in that generation. And I think we've got to make sure that, one, we support them in different ways, because hybrid working is here forever. It's never going to change. COVID changed that platform forever, in my opinion. But those that do want to get on will still be emotionally mature enough to recognise it. And those will be the ones that come through apprentice schemes and new hires who want to be in the office every day, who want to live and breathe all the other people. And I think hybrid working in itself lends to a world where people become kind of, well, they believe their own hype and they live in their own worlds. Actually, part of working life, part of development, growth, experience, learning is about being around other people who've been there and done it. And experience really does count. They also miss out on culture, of course, because if I join an organisation and I work remotely, I decide what the culture of my business is because I'm not in and around it. I've joined a business, I decide what the culture is. Whereas if I'm around those people every day, the culture infuses me rather than me designing what the culture is. So I think it's an exciting time in many ways because the workforce has changed, but we can't label everybody in the same way. No. There are still lots of emotionally mature young people who recognise the need to get experience, to grow and develop. I mean, I receive CVs all the time who tell me they are experienced engineers and they've worked as an engineer for 10 months. But they will openly tell you on their CV that they're an experienced engineer. Yeah. And for that, they expect to be able to work from home, work independently. Like it's just changed. It's almost like we've put a fast forward button on people's careers. And then social media is full of successful young people.
That was going to be my next point. I said, I agree wholeheartedly with what you said, is that I don't blame this modern working sort of youth, that makes you sound really old, but this sort of new generation of people, of people coming into the job market, because we were never influenced in that way, or the way that we were influenced was, you saw on MTV someone really rich every now and again, and you maybe saw some people who were a little bit famous, but it wasn't shown to you every day for 8 to 12 hours a day on every platform that you went on. Wasn't shown to be like, here's all the trappings of success. Here's how you can get ahead doing little to no work. Here's how you can get ahead in 3 to 5 days. This is how you can be financially free in this amount of time. Like, those messages weren't, they were there, but they weren't thrown down our throats
all day, every
seconds.
day, every single reel that you scroll past.
And I think that's the thing. That's why I don't blame the workforce. I think we as kind of elder statesmen in the working world, and our peers in, I think our responsibility is to, I don't want to sound preachy, but our responsibility is to lead from the front in as much of, this is how work is done, this is how success is created, this is how growth happens, and influence them from a positive way. Like, I don't want to drag people with me, but I want to show them these are the examples I make. The perfect example with me was Kelly's brother, Brad, who worked with me for, I think, 4 or 5 years in my agency. And his ambition, he left college and came and worked for me. He did a couple of months at a call center doing customer service, and came and worked for me for 5 years. And I think in that time, his confidence in terms of being able to speak to clients who were paying us like decent chunks of money, his confidence to problem solve and what have you, really set him up for then his next career, which was, he's now in the fire service. He's a team leader in the fire service, and responsible for saving people's lives.
Yeah, correct.
And I don't want to take any credit for it, but I think there's a ground in there of me just going, look, Brad, this is what business is. This is what responsibility looks like. Because, working at a call center for BT, your responsibility is to answer the call when it beeps. Yeah. This job, and the job that I gave him, was think on your feet, do these things, use your initiative. You're a clever lad. You can understand what people want.
And you gave him the support, and you gave him the responsibility to go and do those things. I mean, I always say, so throughout my career, I've always tried to develop from within. Yeah. So in every organization, there are people who, I call them phoenixes, right? They're hiding in the shadows. Mm-hmm. And all they really need is some right guidance, some responsibility, some accountability, some autonomy. Yeah. And you really see what they're made of. And I sum that up as you can't be what you can't see. Yeah. So if you haven't got those role models, and I had those role models when I was beginning my career, I had people that I aspired to be. Yeah. And I looked at them and I saw how they handled situations, and I thought, wow, what a brilliant skill set. If I can learn those skills, I'll also be able to do that. Yeah. But remote and hybrid working almost removes your ability to be what you can see. Mm. And I do think we've got a responsibility to actually bring some of our knowledge and our expertise back to those people, rather than sitting around moaning about it and saying people don't want to come to the office, they all want to work from home, they classify themselves as experienced after 10 months. I mean, they don't know any different. So it's our job really to get an arm around those people and explain to them that if you want to get on, if you want to do good things in your life, it's not instant. No. Half the stuff you're seeing on social media is fake. Yeah. It's not even real. Yeah. Those people, it's a mirage of success. Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with working hard to get paid a fair day's pay. No. Nothing at all. No. Like, take your time, learn your skills, hone your skills, and then execute those, and you will be fine. You'll get a great job. But it doesn't have to be instant. Like, I feel like sometimes right now, it's just the shortcut to success. Yeah. And the truth is, there are no shortcuts to success. Yeah. You might find 2 people or 5 people who got really lucky and shortcut the way to success, but I'll find you 2 million people who haven't.
100%. So when we were chatting about you coming in, you said you thought you would be slightly a different guest than maybe some of the people who've been on before, because in terms of being the ideas man and maybe the entrepreneur who comes up with the vision for a business, that's not you, but you're more of someone who comes in and helps that vision flourish and then get deployed. I think one of the big things I see from entrepreneurs and from business owners is their inability to A, let go, B, hire well, and then C, trust someone to deliver the vision. Mm-hmm. And it'd be really interesting to get your take on some aspects of that, because, and I've struggled with it, like bringing in ops and deployment and letting go of certain elements, mainly because elements are siloed in my head. I've always found really difficult. I've got better at it as time goes on. I think maturity helps with that massively. But from your point of view, because we paused at All Sports or JD, so maybe talk to us a little bit about what happened post then and where you are now, and then if we can chat about kind of how you help, that would be great.
Yeah, so I do think I'm a bit of a different guest for you. Yeah. So, entrepreneurs create products that either do two things. Either they create a product that's better than somebody else, therefore they create demand by the fact that their product's better, or they create something brand new and they actually create their own demand for something that people didn't even know they needed. I'm not really the guy that comes up with the brand new idea, but what I am is the person that I am entrepreneurial. I help people achieve the outcomes that they need. I operationalize and monetize their ideas. I've worked with lots of entrepreneurs, very successful entrepreneurs who aren't able to actually deliver the end result. They have fantastic ideas, but what do they really need? Well, they need those ideas to become a reality. And I think where I realized quite early on that I wasn't the person to come up with the latest version of the color pink. Like my role in life is I'm very good with vendors and suppliers. I'm very good with colleagues and people. And I'm really good with customers. And I understand the needs of the customers. And that allows me to create and execute operational excellence that gives those entrepreneurs who came up with the fantastic idea in the first place the ability for those products or services to flourish. So all of my engagements really have been where I've been able to help businesses grow and thrive on the back of an entrepreneurial idea. So if we fast forward from All Sports, I went to work for Torex, who became Oracle, and I had exposure to Oracle as a big corporate engine, enormous corporate engine, and that made me realize I didn't want to work for a huge corporate engine. I then transferred over to a fairly new startup called Vodat International. And Vodat International were in their formative build stage. They'd already come up with a transformational idea, and that was replacing old ISDN services for broadband services in retail, hospitality and leisure, an area I knew so well already, having lived on the other side of retail. And what they really needed was the ability to operationalize and grow those services. It was a fantastic idea, but it needed to be executed upon. And I was able to work with that business as a shareholder and a co-owner to drive that through and be able to grow that business. And that business grew from, I think I joined, the turnover was around about £500,000. In the last year that I was there, it was £32 million. And that business had gone on an acquisition trail. It had MBO funding. It had private investment. But the key thing was our customers were incredibly loyal. And they were incredibly loyal because, one, we came up with innovative products and services, but two, the services were very sticky because they were very good. Yeah. And, long-term customer value, that's where I learned about long-term customer value at Vodat. It enabled me to recognize that cost of acquisition is really high. Yeah. So why not just take really good care of all the customers and get more and more penetration on the products that you provide them? It makes them stickier and stickier. You don't need a huge marketing arm if you're doing a fantastic job with your customers, because a whole host of the customers you receive moving forward are all referrals. And that is the very best possible marketing. Yeah. If retail, hospitality, leisure was a very closed industry, everybody knew each other. And to get a referral for your products and services from another retailer, you were already a shoo-in. You were already there. So homing that service that you provided, always putting the customers first, being extremely customer-centric, not just selling them things, but understanding their outcomes. We weren't just reselling products. We were using solutions to solve problems. And that's what creates long-term customer value, because, we're not looking for a 3-year contract. We want to be working with you in 15 years' time. Yeah. And if we are, you'll have bought 25 other things and you'll still be giving us referrals. Yeah. I think a lot of organizations focus on getting people through the door.
It's lead gen, pipeline, it's get them sold, and then the delivery element becomes almost secondary.
Yeah, and then it falls out the bottom and you have to top it up at the top.
Churn in double figures and suddenly you're actually not profitable at all.
And the best thing really is if you can plug the churn but keep pouring it in the top, then you grow a massively thriving business. Yeah. And then moving on from Vodat, it was a big move for me. I'd been there a long time. I'd been there 14 years. I moved over to another managed services provider, another one that had a huge amount of customers and really needed that operational performance to protect churn, generate revenue. And my journey's always been, you and I speak regularly as points of reference. Yeah. You and I have got a network of people that we refer to. That network is the most important piece, because if you've got a network of people who trust in your ability to do things, you are just constantly put in front of opportunities, and they're brilliant opportunities, and you don't have to find them. They find you. Yeah. The referral mechanism doesn't just work in your customer base; it also works in your network, in your career network. Yeah. And I've got some big changes coming in the future too, which I'm really excited about. So more businesses that I can help and support as I move forwards, which is brilliant.
Amazing. So I want to circle back to the comment that you made around sort of putting the customers first, and it's such a soundbite that people and I hear it so. And I've worked in quite a few organisations over the last 5 years as a consultant, or as a business owner, or as just someone coming in to parachute in and troubleshoot. And I hear it a lot. I don't see it done a lot. So what does that actually mean for you when you say putting the customer first?
I completely agree with you. It's like the number one soundbite. We are customer centric. What does that mean?
What does it actually
mean? For me, customer centricity is making decisions within your business that are good for your customers. A lot of decisions we make day after day after day are actually good for us. I like to challenge regularly. Are we doing that for us, or are we doing that for them? What's the impact on the customer? Having a customer lens all the time and involving your customers in that lens. Yeah. So I like to find customers who are customer advocates and champions. And when you're making changes to your business, test those changes. Like so many people go ahead and deploy new systems and new processes and new products entirely on the basis of the fact that it's good for cost to serve. Yeah. But cost to serve is an important business metric, but not always great for long-term customer value. Yeah. You have to test those changes against the customers. You have to make sure that in the room when you're discussing these things, somebody says, what does that mean for our customer?
Yeah.
Is that going to be beneficial to our customers? And in the main, we should focus on what's great for our customers, because cost of acquisition means topping more customers up. That's the worst scenario, actually. Making changes that are good for you in terms of cost to serve and profit. Well, that's great. Not if it creates a significant amount of churn. So constantly testing the products and services that you provide, constantly testing through NPS and CSAT, understanding exactly what the customers think of those changes. And when you're implementing changes, involve them in the implementation. What does it really mean for them? One of the greatest pieces of advice that I've ever received in business was, somebody once said to me, the old adage is, the customer is always right. And for me, there are situations where, this is a little bit controversial, but the customers aren't always right. Actually, you can't ever meet the expectations of some of the customers, even if you write them down and you put them in contracts. So I've changed that really to be the right customers are always right. Yeah. And you find a group of customers that share your vision, they're partners to you, they cooperate with you, they're interested in your success as well as theirs. You're a true partner to that customer. And it's those that you need to listen to all the time, because they're giving you the gold feedback. Like that is, you couldn't buy that anywhere. They're giving you that because they want you to succeed. So, finding who those people are within your organization that you service and really aligning and building meaningful relationships with them that mean much more than you buy from us and we sell you. Build a meaningful relationship that means you've got an air of openness where they can ring you up and tell you, you got this completely wrong. But equally, you can ring them up and say, you've got this completely wrong. Yeah. And that meaningful relationship enables you to grow, develop, deploy new services that are befitting for those customers. And they're really the ones that will stick with you. They'll remain loyal. They'll take new products and services from you. We should always meet the commitments we give to our customers. And we should always put the customer first. And if it's in our gift to sort it out, we should sort it out. However, sometimes the customer isn't always right. That you can go off and develop new processes, new policies against a particular situation where you could give them the world on a plate and they would say to you, I don't like the pattern on the plate. Like, you're not going to please everybody all the time. So you've got to find the right group that fit your business model, your vision, your future growth potential, and really invest in those customers so that you get the best possible information from them.
100%. We, in the software business, we have a focus group of clients who have stuck with us through thick and thin, have been super loyal to us, and we've tried and probably not done the best job we could do at it, but we constantly try to delight them and make sure that they're happy, as we do with everyone. But this particular set of customers have got kind of skin in the game with us. They're invested in the changes that we make. We did a focus group with them recently here, and showed them some of the changes we're making to some of the platform and kind of just got feedback. And I want to do a lot more of that, because ultimately, going back to my very first kind of big job at Betfred, and then when I worked in marketing agencies after that, so many of the business decisions, new product launches, marketing strategies, new scripts for cold calling, the products they were literally selling were done with zero
outward
consultation.
Just outward.
It's just zero inward consultation. Yeah. So no client was ever consulted about it. No focus group was ever ran. No communication with ex-clients about how they left and why they left that service so that we could make it better. None of that happened. No exit interviews around clients. Yeah. But that's not just from small businesses.
That's everywhere.
That's everywhere. Yeah. And it baffles me that isn't something that you do.
We test the products and we decide that they fit a market.
And it's a group of people sat around a table in a boardroom who are either detached from the market completely because they've not worked in it for years or never have done. And we decide that this product is right. And that just blows my mind. And it's literally since being like 23, 24, sat in quite high level meetings with senior people within the businesses I was in. It's like, and I would raise those questions and just be met with stonewall silence, or it'd be shuffled away. And it just baffles me that that's still even in 2025, that's a thing that still happens.
And that's why it's just something people say. We're customer centric. We always put the customer first. Yeah. You've got to walk that walk every day. You've got to constantly test your decisions against what does that do for our customers. Yeah. Every time we make a decision that's great for us, for our businesses, if they're done independently of the base, you're just going to lose the base. Yeah. And I think customers are savvy. They know that that's great for you, but it's okay to be great for you if it's great for them. Yeah. And you've got to test that and make sure that works. And I think the customer advocacy is a really, really important part of any business. If you're just deploying today things that you think they need, and all you're doing is testing the industry, the products, and the profitability, then you've missed the mark. You may get lots of early quick wins, but they'll just dissipate and disappear.
100%. One of the strategies that I've employed in businesses that I've been in recently has been, what are our competitors doing? Cool, we'll do something similar. I'm like, your client base isn't the same. The reason that they are not with that competitor and they're with you is because there's something there. Yeah. There's something there that's different. Otherwise, they would have gone there because they're an incumbent in the space. They're bigger. They've got a bigger marketing budget. They're more visible than you. So they've chose you for a reason. but you're now looking at the competitor product and just mirroring it. You're not going to win market share from them doing that.
Well, and also I think logic and conformity gets in the way a lot anyway. Yeah. You know, you make business decisions based on what seems logical, but if everybody's employing the same logic, actually you're not doing anything different to your competitors. No. And a competitive advantage is having a USP that's different to everybody else. Yeah. I mean, I'm a great I like consuming podcasts. I'm a great Rory Sutherland fan. I don't agree with everything he says, but a lot of the stuff in there, it just frames an alternative way of looking at a situation. I'm not big on sales and marketing, which is why I consume Rory Sutherland, actually, because I learn a lot from it. But like throughout time, I've tried to always put the opposite lens on situations. Like I know from some of your other podcasts, you've had people on here who are big consumers of, they like to read a lot of books. You know, like we've all got some staple books that we should all invest in if we want to succeed in business. You know, Good to Great, Jim Collins, fantastic book. However, how do you challenge the logic? I'm a big reader of the paper, the actual paper, not the consumed BBC News bite size on my phone, which gives me the 10 things they want me to know about today. I like to read the actual paper because within the paper, it gives you a frame of reference that allows you to decide, well, you're telling me it one way, but it works just the same the opposite way and the third way. Like it allows you to consume the information to start to make your own decisions. And I think logical thinking, actually, you know, particularly in the age of ChatGPT and AI, they're all the best probable answers. Well, if we all chase the best probable answers, we're never going to have any USPs. So we have to challenge the norm. We've got to think of new ways to do things that may result in us having a USP. Because, you know, in markets, if everybody just jumps on the same thing, yes, there might be enough market to go around everybody, and that's absolutely fine, but you're never going to break ground. You're never going to do something innovative. You're never going to fuel a change. You're just going to do what everybody else is doing because logic says that's what we should do next. So I'm a really big advocate of kind of stepping back from what you see, hear, or read and actually trying to put some different lenses on that and say, does it work the other way around? And that's why I really like Sutherland because he allows me a frame of reference that makes me challenge the norm. Obviously, he goes to the nth degree. And
he can be quite polarizing, can't he, in his views?
And actually, you probably roll the opposite way. You probably get too much of the everything alternative is the right answer.
Maybe.
But you do need to challenge the norms.
100%. So switching gears slightly, because I think we could talk for hours on just your background and business and the state of it. But I think switching gears slightly with you and what you do and the way that you've helped businesses and your own businesses to succeed, are the things that you would say are like habits that you do religiously when you go into new businesses or go into new ventures, the things that you immediately focus on that are like problem areas for you to solve?
Yeah, so I just start with the people. Who have you got? What skills have they got? What are their cultural values? How do they align? Have they got hidden skills and talents that are being underutilized? You then look, I want to know about the business, quote to cash. I want to know the entire cycle from beginning to end, because if I don't understand it, how can I impact it? And then really what you're trying to identify is pain points or problem points, and I go and test them against the customer base. You know, I'm a huge advocate of getting out amongst the customers and hearing the feedback directly. It's only then really that you can start to build the strategic plan for development. How do we better operationalize the offer? How do we make it more palatable to the customers? How easy is it for them to access and use? And all of those measures really are all about taking the idea, taking the new solution or the new product and actually making it mean something. You've got to make it be relevant. So it's not enough to talk about the technical specifications or the SLAs or the KPIs. They're just part of the things of the product. Like, what problems does it solve? What outcomes does it achieve? And then testing those outcomes and making sure that you're deploying and supporting things that are still fit for those businesses. A key thing is going back and retesting those things. You don't do it once. It's a continual cycle. Your customers will change, your products will change, your solutions will change, the needs of the industry will change. If you're not involved in meaningful customer relationships and you've got the right people to talk to and you have the right engagement with those people, how will you ever know what their businesses are doing and what they might need next? So you have to plug yourself into the industry that you're involved in. You have to understand what legislative changes are coming. You have to understand how the industry itself is morphing. But knitting all that together is what makes effective products. So I wouldn't say there are specific things, but you have to have a great understanding of all of the bits. It's like putting together a 10,000 piece jigsaw. You have to understand what the picture needs to look like before you can start finding the pieces, to find the edges, to fill in the middle. It changes all the time. Occasionally someone will come along and scrag your jigsaw again, and that's fine because they're just problems and things that you need to confront to constantly change the solutions or the services you're providing. And that's what I think are my main skills, actually. I like complex moments. I like challenge. I like rolling my sleeves up and getting stuck in. I'm definitely not a hands-off manager of situations. I like to be involved in them. I don't dominate them. I like people to come up with the answers, but I like to understand the problems, because in understanding the problems, you can give permanent and lasting solutions to those problems. But you have to always go back and test it again and test it again and test it again. The one thing I would say in business and businesses I've been involved in, if you do the same thing for too long, if it was unique, somebody's caught you up. And if it wasn't unique and everybody else was doing it and they're all developing and growing and deploying new services and solutions, actually, you're now behind. So you've got to continually test against your customers that your offering is right.
100%. So many times I see, probably in smaller businesses, but I'm sure it exists in larger ones as well, where the product is developed, it gets a level of success, and then the owner-managed, owner-operated side of the business suddenly goes, oh, I like this stuff now, so I'm going to start doing this, and we're going to pivot to this. Or, like I said, an incumbent in the space is doing this, so we're going to do this now. And suddenly it alienates the people that you've brought in on the product, the A product to this B product. They're kind of left in the lurch with this unsupported, undeveloped service that they've got.
There's a new flavour in town.
Yeah, and it pisses off your staff because suddenly you're like, oh, you were selling apples, you're selling bananas now, mate. Sorry. You need to become an expert in bananas. And you probably need to do it in the next 2 or 3 weeks because we're launching the marketing campaign now. And there's no, what you said around consultations with clients, I think equally needs to happen internally with staff. And so many times it's done in a boardroom or it's done in a management setting, and then it's just disseminated down as, I'm speaking on high, here are the rules, we're changing this thing, you've all now got to do it, you've all got to learn it. We might throw you a little bit of training here and there, but there's no comms and there's no comms coming upwards, it's always downwards.
Always downwards, yeah. For me, I think businesses often pivot and change. Sometimes they're quite knee-jerk, especially in smaller businesses with single owners, because if something isn't working in 4 weeks, well, it's my money. I want to do something else. But I do believe that the strength or success of a vision is only really defined by your ability to articulate that vision to everybody in your business. If you can't articulate where you're going, what you're doing, and where you want to be, and give everybody a North Star to focus on, how can you imagine that those people will do the right things? Like, if you haven't successfully articulated where you want to get to, how are all these people going to carry you to that place that you haven't defined? They're all inevitably going to go off and do their own thing. And I think having a single vision is really, really important in business. An entrepreneur, a successful entrepreneur, will have a clear vision, and everybody that works for them, right from the top to the bottom, will all know where you're going. And within that, if everybody's bought into that and everybody knows where we're getting there, of course the plan changes. The plan changes the second you're punched in the face. You have to flex and change. But if the vision remains the same, the path doesn't have to be a linear path from A to B. You know, there might be lots of intersections where it changes and we move in different directions. But as long as we know where we want to get to, we can, the old adage is, if you want to get north, then you keep going north. But some days you're going to end up getting a knockback and you're going to end up going south. But if the next day you go north again, eventually you'll get to that place that you want to get to in the north. And I think you've got to get everybody to buy into that.
Yeah.
Like everybody has to be on that journey with you, and you shouldn't really tolerate people that aren't on that journey. Some people want to come in and work 9 till 5, not worry about work at the weekends. That's absolutely fine. The needs of, one of the earliest lessons I learned in life was not everybody wants to do the things that you think they might want to do. I've got a great story from when I was running the warehouse systems for All Sports. There were 7 different jobs and people came in and did the same job every day. I thought, how can everybody be happy doing the same job every day, every single day doing the same thing? So I thought, we'll create a rota. We'll get people to work on different things. Within 2 weeks, the wheels were off. You know, the 2 members of staff that like to tag the clothes before they arrived on the sortation system, well, they'd known each other for 10 years. They'd sat together and done that job for 10 years. They knew how to do it. They didn't even have to pause to think. They could just do it automated all day. Now I've got them picking out a racking or alarm tagging, and they're with different people. They're having to think about their job. And all they really wanted to do was come in at 9 o'clock, do their job and go home at 5 o'clock. And they'd do the work for you and they'd make sure they were productive, but actually they liked the person they worked with or they liked the task they were doing because they didn't have to think about it. Yeah. Whereas other people would have mundanely been bored to death in 10 seconds and would want to do different things. I would have hated it. Yeah, like you just couldn't have done it. It would have, the mind-numbing part of that would have just overwhelmed us and we'd have left. Yeah. But having an appreciation that you have to manage all different people in all different ways is the real art of management. Yeah. And not just presuming you think you know who they are. So going back to meaningful relationships, again, it's just as important with colleagues. Know who they are, know what fuels them, know what worries them, know what makes them apprehensive, and adjust how you deal with them in that way and make sure you accommodate for all the different things everybody are. It's a really important piece.
I think for like anyone who is an owner, operator in their own businesses right now who might be listening to this episode, that's their responsibility as the person who's hiring. 100%. Like there's so many people who I know who hire people into the business and they hire really quickly and then they fire really quickly off the back end. And I'm the other way. I hire really slowly so that I can learn those things and understand the right people and then bring them in, because then the chances of me having to fire them in 3 months' time after the probation are lessened so much because you've spent the time and understood at least a little bit of who they are and what they want to do and what their ambitions are, what their goals are. So bringing those people into your business and bringing people into the business that you understand are super important, and it's a super important trait. And you know, some people who listen to this episode might have 1 or 2 members of staff, 2 or 3 members of staff, but is that relationship a binary relationship where it's here's your tasks for the day, I'll see you at the end of the day to do it, or do you know that person? Do you know what their goals and ambitions are? You know, I think the outsourced overseas workforce kind of phenomenon, especially in small businesses, you know, hiring VAs, and they're just seeing, and it's actually, I find it a little bit disgusting. Like people see these overseas VAs or these overseas resources that they hire as just like an extension of ChatGPT. It's like they're just a thing, a person that does this thing for me. Yeah. I'm like, I've just hired a couple of editors who are overseas, and they've gone through a traditional Western interview process where I'm like, okay, cool. What are your ambitions? Where do you want to be? What are your goals? Like, I know that they're both getting married. They both want to travel to the UK because where they live at the minute isn't massively encouraging around same-sex relationships. So they both want to move. You know, I know their likes and dislikes. I know what their ambitions are. I know where their background comes from. I know where they live. You know, I've got a real understanding of who they are. So that then when I have to, you know, give them honest feedback and criticism, it's not from a place of binary, well, this job isn't right or this work isn't right. It's like, cool, this is what needs to change. And the reason that it needs to change is because of these reasons. And I can see why you've done it and I can be more empathetic because of your background and I know what you've done previously. and I've got more information to be able to manage that person correctly. I think so much, especially in small businesses, where we hire someone to do a job, we pay them this money, they're a contractor, so they get paid whatever it is for this day, and I expect them to just work solidly for that 8 hours and not ask any questions, and they should just do it because they're a contractor. I'm like, that's the wrong mentality. Such a terrible way to look at things.
Yeah, I mean, it's the accountability mirror as well. So, look, let's be honest. If we hire someone and we hire the wrong person or they fail, it's on us.
Of course it is.
It's all about how we onboarded them, how we connected them to our business, have we aligned them correctly to the outcomes we want, have we invested in making meaningful relationships with them where we understand them. And if we don't, and we just turn them on as a thing, what results do we think we're going to get? We're going to get failed results. And when it fails, often it's really easy
Blame them.
to not hold up the accountability mirror, to say, oh, I had high hopes for you because you'd done this and this before, but there was no onboarding process. You didn't invest time in them. Anybody new into your business, if it's and let's be quite frank, particularly in entrepreneurial small businesses, the hiring process and having to pay those wages is significant to your business. If you're not woven into what they do every day for their onboarding process, if you're not having an arm around them and understanding what they're doing and what's working for them and not what's not, you're only going to end up with failed situations. Some people in that environment may just take it on. And you might slap yourself on the back and say, what a brilliant hire. But they've done that work, not you. 100%. So you've got to be willing to hold up the accountability mirror and say, I'm responsible for weaving this person into my business. And if it fails, it's on me. And I think if you're introspective enough to do that, you will be more successful because you understand the value of integrating them into your operation.
Yeah, 100%. I think trust becomes a huge part in that whole situation. And I think a lot of the times the wrong mentality is taken into employee relationships, especially for small owner, managed owner operated businesses is, and I see it so often, it's like that employee or these set of employees they're trying to do the bare minimum. It's a battle. I'm trying to drag them to do the most they can in those 8 hours, and they're trying to get away with doing the least they can in those 8 hours. And I was like, if that's the mentality that you've got, then of course that's what's going to happen. That's definitely going to happen.
Well, I think you've got this situation where you can try to get people to conform. Yep. So you can say you're working for 8 hours and these are the things you're going to do, but you'll only ever get the thing you've asked them to do. Yeah, like, what do we really want? We want creativity, collaboration, ideas, suggestions. We want them to drive new ways of working that are more efficient and effective, because actually, you're probably out trying to sell new products and services. You're probably out with the customers. You're probably trying to pick new suppliers and vendors. Yeah. What you really need is the team that are operating the business to drive ideas up, not just do what you ask them to do. Yeah. And that's how successful businesses grow, where there is a trust that exists that says, I brought you in because I know you're the right person. I know you've got the right skills. I believe you've got the right values. Let's go. Here's where we want to get to, and you help me, and I'll help you. I'll continually invest in your development. I'll invest in your training. I'll invest in opportunities when they become available for you to grow through the organization. But what I ask back is, if we're doing something that's stupid, tell us it's stupid. If you're doing something every day that is triple handling something and you think you can change it so you only do it once, tell me what it is and let's do it. You help me drive this business. Easier in smaller organizations than in larger organizations, but no less relevant, in my opinion. Yeah. Large organizations are broken down into teams and departments. The very best ideas come from the teams and departments. Yeah. So you need to listen, you need to consume, and you need to believe in your staff.
100%. To wrap up, because we've been going far longer than I thought we were doing. We're almost an hour in already. To wrap up, there's a few, not quick fire questions because I don't want you to shorten your answer to them, but there's a few questions that I ask every guest that comes in around business advice or advice in life. And this is probably my pessimistic side coming out, but I tend to think that we learn more from things that have gone wrong, or bad advice or bad situations, than we'd ever do from things that have gone really well. So two questions initially. Can you give me an example of a scenario where something's gone wrong and how you dealt with it and how you overcame it and how you made sure it never happened again?
Yeah, I think I've probably covered a couple of examples in our chat, but I would say, presuming that everybody thought like me is wrong. We all think in the ways we think, and we have to accommodate and learn those. And rectifying those situations is just learning from that particular mistake and making sure you don't do it again. I think I've got some pretty strong views on some of our growth strategies that are not related directly to what the customer needs. Yeah. It's more the business needs. I think I've made loads of decisions throughout my career where they've been led with the wrong lens. But over the last 25 years, I think I've learned that the customer lens on what we should or we shouldn't do is the most important lens you can apply. It's so much easier to retain, maintain, and sell to existing happy customers than it is to lose them out at the bottom and have to top them up in the top.
100%. What's one piece of advice? What's the worst piece of business advice or advice in general that you've had that you thought, where the fuck's this come from? And did you spot it initially, or did you end up deploying it and it not working for you?
I think you're confronted all the time with approaches, or you're confronted all the time with new ideas, and you arrive at a crossroads. Do you go with it or do you not go with it? Yeah. I think there is sometimes, particularly in larger businesses, there's quite a gung-ho mentality of we're just doing this. And there's not enough of a period of reflection. I mean, my advice would be this. So when confronted with a difficult situation, stand back and wait. Just take 5 minutes, because I can absolutely guarantee you that in 5 minutes' time, the information you had at the beginning that created mass panic is not actually the situation that's there. Yeah. That period of reflection allows you just to let it sit and soak, work out what's really going on, and then you can decide what to do next. And I think that if everybody took that time just to stand back from the moment, then you'd get much better outcomes. You're not as knee-jerk. You don't go into crisis mode. You don't deploy loads of resources on things that aren't required. Yeah. And actually, that period of calm is also good for the customer. Yeah. Because if you look like you're in blind panic, they see straight through that. Whereas if they see you reflecting and coming up with a resolution path, actually, they're really reassured that you know what you're doing.
Yeah, definitely. Danny, who was on the podcast as our first guest, he made a comment around advice, and it was like, the great advice can be super dangerous to the wrong person. Yeah, and I think the people who give advice and come from a place of mentorship or of guidance are skilled at looking at the person and giving the advice to the right person, as opposed to just blanket statements. I think that's really key, and it's something that probably I've subconsciously done for a while, but never really articulated in the way that Danny did. But I think it's really important.
I listened to that too. It was a really good point. I mean, the right advice at the right time to the right people is really important, because, as you know, we're all wired up differently. What is good for one isn't always good for another. I think we rely on quite a lot of basic business principles that get drilled into us from when we're born. Yeah. This is how you interact. You know, we spoke about before about the concept of the customer is always right. That's a huge retail, hospitality, and leisure adage. But my spin on that is the right customer is always right. And that's kind of leading on from what Danny said about advising, giving advice to other business owners. Actually, it's got to be appropriate at the right moment to the right people in the right way. Because it is dangerous, because, you know, new starters of enterprises, you could just fill them full of all the things that work for you, but they won't work for them.
100%. And I think as someone in marketing specifically, it's dangerous for me. And over the years, I've got much better at saying no to people, because people are really enthusiastic about the businesses and they want to grow and they want to scale and they want to, you know, they can see the types of services I would offer as something that would really help them. But I use this old adage, I can't remember who told it me, it was said to me years ago, but sometimes strapping the wrong marketing strategy onto a business is like sticking a rocket back on a canoe. It's just going to sink because the foundations aren't there for it to actually deal with the things that you're going to do. And it only reflects badly on you as the person who's the marketer. It can be super damaging to the business because they've invested all this money and time and effort, and they've put loads of resource down a strategy that isn't necessarily 100% right for them, or they're not geared right to deal with it. Yeah. And it can cause huge reputational damage for you as the marketer or the agency or what have you. So being able to say no and being able to be like, you're not ready for this and this is the reason why, and being able to articulate, not from a place of arrogance, but from a place of like genuine like knowledge, concern, and then delivering value to that individual is key. Danny referred me to a number of his clients over the last few months for different things, and he's vetted them for me, and then I've done a second set of vet to make sure that the people that we do offer this service to are the right people. I think that's so important.
Very important. I mean, I guess if you're not ready for organic growth, if you're not able to deal with organic growth, then attaching a marketing rocket pack, like you're not ready for your BAU, never mind your new business. So
what's one book or resource that you are really, really enthusiastic about, you think every business owner or every entrepreneur should read or use?
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably go for some alternative titles. So there's a book I read called Freakonomics. Right. That I'll find you the author. But Freakonomics gives an alternative view on the way that economies are structured and about how it's an alternative. Like, for example, why aren't all drug dealers really, really rich? Because that's because they have to hide their wealth, or they have to hide behind long chains of people. And I really like the idea of taking an alternative view on the way that economics works. So I guess my reading's more about, I like to take an alternative spin on the daily news, and I read a newspaper to do that. So I infuse myself with facts rather than just dealing with the bite-sized information. There's some classic books. There are endless business titles which you should consume. I probably read Good to Great 10 times, cover to cover. It gives you a basis of understanding for you to develop your own ideas, but it gives you the key fundamentals that you need in order to be successful in the first place. So if anyone hasn't read Good to Great by Jim Collins, they absolutely should. I love the idea of the hedgehog concept, having a single strategy to pursue rather than multiple strategies all at once. I think entrepreneurial businesses in startup phase often chase too many things all at once. Yeah. And you get lost in the thick of the thin of all those things.
Getting good at one thing is so key.
So key. And then build out from that.
Amazing. If people want to find out a little bit more about you and your journey and the exciting things that you've got coming up, is LinkedIn probably the best place to do it?
Yep. So you find me on LinkedIn, or I'm on Instagram as well, but it's mainly just personal stuff on Instagram. But LinkedIn, you can find me there under Matt Bannon on LinkedIn.
Perfect. I'll post the link up at the description of this clip and of this podcast. That's it for today's episode. Thanks so much, Matt, for coming in.
Thank you, Stephen.
One of the most insightful chats I've had in ages, so really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this episode, give it a like, a comment, a share. They're always appreciated. If you like the style of this podcast and want to shoot something similar for yourself, you can get in touch with me at stephen@contentspace.com. There'll be a little QR code that pops up somewhere around this video in a sec. You can scan that and book a call. And I'll see you on the next episode. Take care. Bye-bye.